We have a special episode for you today, a countdown of the world's most incredible abandoned theme parks.
A countdown. Finally, we're becoming trashy to widen our reach. I thought the day would never come.
Really? I thought the day came pretty early on, but here we are. Here we are. This is Where Did Everyone Go? With me, Dr. Sasha Aravak.
And me, Tom Ward. A journey into the weird history of abandoned places.
It's like we're doing a chart show on the radio. People still do that? They do the countdown.
I loved it. Growing up, that was what I did on a Sunday night under the duvet. I'd have my Walkman on and I'd listen to the top 40.
Really?
Did you do that? The Billboard 100?
I mean, I played the radio a lot. I don't think I specifically devoted my downtime to it.
I was obsessed with that top 10 at 10.
Top 10
p.m. on a Sunday night. I knew I was supposed to be asleep.
Mm-hmm.
I was there trying to find out if Bryan Adams was still number one.
Do you have a deep investment in Bryan Adams' position on the charts?
17 weeks he was number one with that Robin Hood thing.
How do you remember that stuff?
Because it sticks in your brain.
You don't understand Marxism, but you remember that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's more important.
It is. You know what? It probably is more important. Okay, without further ado, let's start the countdown. And it's not 100. It's not even 10. It's top 6. I hope that's not disappointing.
That's very manageable.
Yeah, it's very manageable. So, in at number 6, Dogpatch USA.
Climbing 3 places up at 6. It's Dogpatch USA.
They're all abandoned, so technically I think, can you do it? I guess, yeah, why not?
Yeah, can you improve in your dereliction?
Oh, this one's falling apart even faster than we expected.
Reclaimed by Nature extra this week. Okay. So the video footage. Let's have a look at that.
Yeah. What are you seeing?
Okay, so I'm seeing lots of small log cabins spread out across a vast area of forest, a water slide by a lake, which is very fun, an old water mill, and some weird rock sculptures.
Yeah, so there's some large models of some sort of a creature hidden among the trees. There's an elevated railway that snakes through the site, and it goes right past a waterfall.
Okay, Sasha, what is this place?
All right, so between 1934 and 1977, there was a very popular comic book strip called Lil Abner. And the strip had 60 million readers in over 900 American newspapers and 100 foreign newspapers as well.
Wow.
The story was set in a poor Appalachian village named Dogpatch. And this is the theme of this park. It's a place to live out the fictional world of this comic strip, Lil Abner. And you can see some Lil Abner images in front of you.
Okay. So who was this Lil Abner that was so beloved as to have a big park named after him?
Well, it's a bit of an odd situation, right? Because the author of this comic strip is a guy named Al Capp. Okay. And his vision of life in the Appalachia region was a demeaning hillbilly stereotype, but it was also one that people kind of loved and embraced. So Lil Abner...
Yeah, stereotypes are fun.
Yeah, stereotypes are fun.
An Irishman, a Jew, and a Nigerian walk into a bar.
Okay.
Do you want me to finish that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. But you felt the sense of fun, didn't you?
Listeners. But also discomfort. Now, this was a real, as you can tell from the images, a real over-the-top portrayal of rural folk living in what is still to this day one of the most impoverished regions of the United States. And, you have the main character who's got like the kind of pompadour and then his love interest. And these cartoons were full of these buxom female characters, kind of like the same type that you'd see, drawn on the side of bombers in World War II. We'll get back to that in a little bit, but you can see it's really, really over the top.
So this Al Capp guy, what was he like?
Well, Al Capp's a really interesting character, I think. Al Capp isn't his real name. His real name was Alfred Gerald Kaplan, and he was the child of Latvian Jewish immigrants born in 1909 in New Haven, Connecticut. So nowhere near Appalachia, which is, like West Virginia, Georgia type region.
Okay.
And he wrote this comic strip actually mostly from his home in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He looked out onto Harvard Yard when he was writing a lot of, especially the later parts of these comics, which I'll come back to. But he was from the very beginning a kind of difficult, cantankerous character. and he had a very fiery relationship with his mentor, who was another cartoonist, to the point that he would actually write this guy into his comic strips as a kind of greedy, grasping guy who wouldn't pay his assistants enough.
Okay.
Now, he was kind of anti-commercial, at least in terms of he didn't want to farm out his comic strip or his characters to other endeavors. So he turned down a lot of commercialized aspects of the comic, though he did become very wealthy off of the comic because of all the newspapers it was printed in and its very, very long run.
Okay.
But he liked this idea for a theme park because it didn't seem as crass and commercialized as the other ones that came his way.
Mm-hmm.
So Dogpatch USA wasn't so much about the rides, it was more about the setting and the atmosphere that it provided. For many visitors, this was a chance to be part of a world they had grown up reading about, because the comic strip ran for, decades. And activities from catching a fish in the trout pond and having it cooked in the park's restaurant to watching artisans produce traditional crafts in these cabins. The guests were supposed to be transported to this imagined world of Appalachia that had sprung from Al Cap's mind.
Very quaint. So was the park popular?
It was extremely popular. And it's also worth pointing out that this type of recreation of a world is something that you will see in American historic sites. You can go to historical Williamsburg, and experience life in a colonial village. This becomes a very, very popular kind of leisure activity in America.
For the dudes?
For everybody. I
remember the dudes from the other app we did. The Dude Ranch.
Yeah.
That's what they call the city types who come and want to live the life of the old time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit more kind of back to nature, simplified life, horses, hard work, like manliness.
Throttling boars for breakfast.
Yeah. This was more about these historic recreations are more about an engagement with America's colonial past, America's historic past, which is interesting when you think about it, because compared to a European country, the past is not that far past for America. It's a relatively recent invention. And also it's very constructed, because what was the real past of America, or at least of the terrain? The real past was, indigenous Americans, not colonial Americans. So there's this very conscious myth making in America about its history.
To cover it up kind of thing, or to kind of move past it and not dwell on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's more kind of erasure and just ignoring it than actively covering it up. But so Little Abner, this Dogpatch theme park is more about that recreation of a mythology, and I think it's closer to something like historic Williamsburg in some ways than it is to something like Disneyland, sort of halfway between the two, because the characters are all fictional, right?
Okay, and would you have had actors playing the people that would have been there, so you would be able to engage with life as it would have been?
I think we can presume so. Yeah, absolutely. But he's creating this kind of idealized old-timey rural America, which is not really how things worked, so there is this strong element of myth making.
It's a very escapist.
Yeah, and it was hugely popular. The park opened in 1968, and its first year, 300,000 people came to enjoy this hillbilly comic creation.
Very good start.
Yeah. At the time, Little Abner, the brand, was doing really well. There were plans to open a chain of themed restaurants, and there was a TV show in the pipeline. It's hard to emphasize just how famous Al Cap became and this comic strip was. He was featured on the cover of Life magazine twice.
Wow.
They made a movie, a Little Abner movie, like animated television shows. It was a big hit.
So AB did loosen his grip on the brand. It sounds like. Do whatever you want, you greedy sons of bitches.
Yeah.
Just don't mess with the authentic feel of the product.
Yeah. But you're probably wondering, why. Have you heard of Little Abner before?
No.
Yeah, so can I ask the question, well, why? Have you heard of Charles Schultz's Peanuts?
Yes.
Snoopy comic?
Yes.
Okay, now, why have we heard of Snoopy and Peanuts and not of Little Abner?
Good question.
Well, because Peanuts always had this kind of innocence to it, and it was in its own way a little bit countercultural, like it had a very, very broad appeal.
But Little Abner had Nazi sympathy.
No, 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 no. Lil Abner, in its own
He
way,
was a big fan of Chairman Mao.
he was not a big fan of Chairman Mao.
He believed that the white race was superior.
That's a good question. I don't know what the racial elements of the Lil Abner cartoons were. It's a good question. But he started out kind of anti-establishment. Like he would sort of
Right.
poke fun. And he was actually a New Deal Democrat, which is that those were the Democrats at the time that were supportive of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal, but kind of rebuilding of America through public investment. But when he got to the the late 60s and 70s, you know how American politics are changing. You have the anti-Vietnam movement and the free love movement and hippie culture and drug culture. And Al Cap wanted none of it. None of it. And he was seeing it all unfold in real time because he was living in Cambridge and he was seeing people demonstrate. So he went from kind of mocking greedy plutocrats to mocking student culture, mocking hippie culture. And there's this one famous incident when one of your favorite people, John Lennon and Yoko Ono, were having one of their big love-ins. And Al Cap actually flew out to where they were doing it, went to their hotel, and confronted them. And what he said was, yes, thank you. You've done something very important by exposing all of America to your pubic hair. And John Lennon actually wrote him into one of his songs, or a performance of one of his songs, basically to make fun of him. So it became this sort of more conservative reaction to that culture. And that cost it a lot of its popularity. And this is why it's not celebrated in the same way that, say, Charles Schultz Peanuts is, because it got kind of political, but in a sort of nasty way.
Right.
We had that A.B. Pacino here, didn't we? He was a very loud chap, wasn't he, Yoko?
Yeah.
He was very cantankerous, I thought.
Yeah, he did not like Lennon and Yoko Ono. But
Go back to your cartoons and leave us to be.
So does this explain why the theme park became abandoned? Well, probably had something to do with it, but also by the 70s, things were really changing economically. You had the energy crisis, the price of gas goes sky high, the economy's really struggling, unemployment's up, inflation is going up, and people just weren't as inclined to take long road trips to a theme park like this in the middle of rural Arkansas.
Yeah, it's always the comic strip theme parks that get hit the hardest in a recession.
So a new owner comes in during the 80s, briefly revives the place, bigger rides, and a music venue is added. And the music venue was popular. You had Tina Turner and Dolly Parton playing there.
Very nice.
Yeah. But there was a bigger problem, which is that Al Cap had retired from making the comic, the Little Abner comics in 1977. So you don't have this wellspring of children growing up to adults familiar with Little Abner. They're not clamoring to their parents, let's go to Dogpatch, because they've never heard of Dogpatch.
You got to stay in people's eye line, haven't you? It's amazing how quick popular culture can seem like your parents' stuff.
Yeah.
I mentioned the Beano and Dandy to some young people the other day, and they looked at me like I'd said, "You like rock and roll?" And that was like,
about rock and roll?
I feel like that was just like a couple of years ago that was still a thing.
Yeah. I mean, this is, culture like wine has a shelf life. Things move on, they adapt, and these, especially cartoons, they speak to a particular generation, and if they're lucky, they speak to two generations.
Right. And if Lil Abner was still being drawn now, he would have a phone in his hand and he'd be sitting there like that in every shot. Lil Abner, come on, go out. No, I just want to look at stuff, okay? Come on, honey. Get out there. It's a beautiful day. No. What's the point? Everything's screwed, Mom. Your generation screwed everything.
Now, there were some surreal elements to the Lil Abner comic, and one of them was the shmoo. Have you ever heard of the shmoo?
No, I haven't.
Now, weirdly enough, this did penetrate my childhood consciousness. I can't tell you exactly how or why, but the shmoo were these weird kind of bowling pin shaped creatures. They had legs but no arms, and the shmoo's sole purpose was to please humans. They were also a kind of multi-purpose animal in that you could eat them, you could use their skins to make clothes, and this is my favorite part. Depending upon how long you cook them in the pot, they taste of a different substance. So if you fry them in a frying pan, they taste like chicken, but if you cook them longer, they taste like steak. And the Shmoo were so eager to please humans, they would literally leap into the frying pan to cook themselves.
Wow.
Yes, it's very strange.
But these are not real.
No, these are not
Right.
real.
Oh.
That's the Shmoo.
Okay, I was just trying to work out if this was like an extinct animal, that
Nope,
shape of a
nope,
bowling ball with
never
no arms
lived,
that jumped to
never
its own death,
Yeah.
and it wanted to please humans, so it was a kind of sex doll as well.
Yeah, no, I don't think it had any sexual organs.
But you know that the adult cartoon would have surely had the Shmoo doing all sorts of stuff.
Well, that's another kind of controversial aspect of Al Cap's art, is that he did write these very, sexual, hypersexualized female characters.
Right.
And at times you might have taken it a bit too far. Remember I said that he got into a kind of wrangle with his former mentor.
Yes.
Well, when he was trying to sell part of the cartoon, I can't remember what the exact story is, but he's trying to get it syndicated in a particular capacity. This guy actually dug up some old illustrations that he'd made of characters from the Labner cartoon in compromising sexual positions, and basically said he's a closet pornographer.
Right.
And
Well, he is in the closet. He is. If you rummage anyone's closet, you find all sorts of stuff.
But he's drawing these really, really racy photos,
Right.
And so this guy, shares them with his potential business partner in a way to embarrass him, and then Al Cap ends up bringing a sort of counter case against him
For burglary.
Yeah, and his mentor ends up publicly humiliated. He's accused of forging these things, and meanwhile, the comic book that this mentor had read had basically, which is called Joe Palooka, had been completely eclipsed by the Labner comic. So whereas Al Cap becomes a very, very wealthy man and hugely famous, this guy dies alone in an obscurity. It actually takes them a month to find his dead body in his flat because he had no friends left, and he was living in these really poor circumstances.
Wow.
So in to bring this guy down, he ends up hurting himself even more.
Ugly.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the theme park itself. The rise of Disney, which you've mentioned already, didn't really help. That's kind of the new. Okay, I want to live this. Engage the childhood fantasies and something that adults and children can both enjoy. And Dogpatch really can't compete. It finally shuts in 1993. The derelict site has been bought by new owners with the hope of making use of its fish-filled lakes.
Okay. So Al Cap, did he never consider changing his name to Al Cap Pacino? Just for fun? He didn't seem like the fun kind.
Yeah, there's a phrase that's something like, he who makes a pun murders the language, or something like that.
Right.
I think that's applicable.
I think it's apt that you couldn't even remember the saying to the cuss.
Sorry.
There's a saying that if you haven't got the saying ready, just shut up.
What is it? Better to stay silent and have people think you a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Yeah, and people will think you're all sorts if you're just quiet. They project anything onto silence, don't they? They're like, oh, he's so enigmatic.
He's so
deep.
She seems so nice.
She's so mysterious. It's like, no, she's thick, but just very quiet. I get the impression this Al Cap guy was probably like a crotchety old man.
He's very crotchety.
If a ball landed in his garden, he'd be like,
you kids with your long hair and your broken.
Yeah, you're causing everything to get ruined.
It does beg the question of, if you really didn't like, people of the left, why would you live in Cambridge, Massachusetts? It's kind of ground zero for it. But maybe he'd like someone to shout at. Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyway, the most famous cartoonist you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Let's move on to number 5. Excellent. All the way from Japan. We have Russian Village.
A new entry at 5.
Bye. So the video footage is now playing, and the first thing your eye is drawn to is this enormous Russian-style cathedral, complete with the onion-type domes and crosses on top of each one.
And it's not just a facade, because inside it looks like a proper church too. The altar, the pews, a giant face of Jesus.
Jesus, Jesus, Jesus.
But it's all totally ruined.
It's all totally ruined. Yeah, the stained glass windows are all smashed, and there's paint peeling from the walls.
Yeah, okay then, Sasha, what's going on here? This doesn't seem like a theme park.
Well, the theme here is Russia, Russia, Russia. And trust me, you'll never guess why.
Russia and Japan. Did Japanese teenagers go through a massive Shostakovich phase? Was he their Elvis?
Wow, that's a very nice classical music reference.
Yeah.
And done by someone who's wearing a Stranglers t-shirt. So
Yeah.
full of surprises.
I'm multifaceted.
You
My
are
brother listened to Shostakovich every
Oh,
morning
nice.
for a year. It was a bleak time. He'd eat a whole cheesecake and listen to Shostakovich.
A whole cheesecake?
Yeah, and he shaved his head. He was very angry for a year.
Okay, the Shostakovich, the head shaving, that seemed to be of a piece, but the cheesecake.
Well, that was just breakfast. There was nothing. That was nothing to the.
Did someone make cheesecake? Or did you have to buy?
No, buy a whole cheesecake.
Buy a whole cheesecake.
Yeah, eat it.
God, that makes me want some cheesecake. I really like cheesecake.
Yeah.
But not for breakfast. That's just wrong. Yeah, traditionally relations between Russia and Japan were not good, and goes back to when they were competing for control of that region of mainland Asia. In fact, Japan is the first non-European power to defeat a major European power in a major war, in the Russo-Japanese War of 1907, and it really sent shockwaves around the world at the time,
Right.
because no one could imagine an Asian nation defeating a European nation, let alone mighty Russia and its incredibly modern, incredibly well-led navy. But that's exactly what happened.
So it changed people's perception of what Asia was capable of.
Well, it changed people's perception, particularly of what Japan was capable of.
So they must have had quite sort of like a reductionist version of what Japan was and what its army was capable of and what kind of weaponry they had.
European nations in general, whether it was Britain or France, they'd been beating up on Asian nations for 4 generations by this time. Things like the Opium Wars, and so the idea that an Asian nation would somehow match them and even exceed them was almost unthinkable. But Japanese proved it possible. And Japanese, they were very what's the right word to describe it? They're very strategic in their adoption of Western ways. So they kept a lot of traditional Japanese culture in terms of social hierarchy and religion, but then they industrialized very fast. They developed immense scientific capabilities, adopted capitalism.
More efficient timekeeping with the tanks.
More efficient timekeeping with the tanks, exactly. But towards the end of the 20th century, something happened between Russia and Japan that established a kind of bond between the two people. In 1964, a severe earthquake hit this area of Japan, Niigata. The ground liquefied. This process called liquefaction, which is basically these vibrations kind of dissolve the ground from the bottom up. So unlike a mudslide, which takes off the surface, when you get these really strong earthquakes, the ground starts to liquefy from the bottom up. So by the time people on the surface realize what's happened, everything below them is gone. And this is why, for example, you get whole villages just sliding off of mountains, right? Because there's just no purchase all the way down.
Okay.
So buildings collapse, bridges collapse, train tracks buckle. The earthquake isn't a huge fatality event. It only kills about 36 people, but it does destroy thousands of homes. It was a real crisis in this region. And then, a month later, a huge shipment of wood for rebuilding the community arrives from 2 small cities in Russia where they'd heard about the disaster. Russians are, by and large, very generous people. It was a gesture that would allow those who'd lost their homes to rebuild, because most traditional building, most home building in Japan is then and still is today wood. So help had come from the most unlikely of sources, and it was a gesture that the people of Niigata never forgot.
That is very nice.
Yeah.
That's it's nice to be sent gifts, surprise gifts are very nice, but a gift from a country that you had seen as your enemy to help you rebuild, that's going to be one of those where you're like, oh, that's going to change the whole dynamic, you would think.
Yeah. I mean, present political situation aside, this has always been my experience of Russians, which is it's very black and white with them. You're either in or you're out.
You're either white
you're a
or
friend,
you're wrong.
You're white, you're wrong. You're a friend or you're not a friend. And if you're a friend, they will literally give you the shirt off their backs.
Yeah.
So
they've got a bad image at the moment, Russians.
Well, of course they have a bad image. The war in Ukraine is absolutely horrible, and there's no excuse for it whatsoever. But I hope that doesn't change kind of our wider historical understanding of Russian culture and Russian people. I mean, you could see people turn around and condemn the U.S. for any number of wars, but hopefully it doesn't change their idea of like what the American character is and the generosity and friendliness of Americans.
We don't talk about America in those ways on this podcast. And we thank you for listening, and thank you, America, for paying attention to us.
Yeah. To be frank, I've always been a bit suspicious about saying this nation is that or that nation is that.
It's fun to say, though, at the time, though, isn't it?
Well, as we were saying in our earlier story, it's easy to make stereotypes, but they're more
good.
likely to conceal the truth rather than reveal it, I think.
Oh, I love stereotypes. So relaxing, aren't they? Oh, just label things broadly. It just feels great.
Yes.
But once you can feel certain about something.
Yeah. All 40s, 80s music fans, hipsters are X. All academics are X. And, it's 90% true, of course.
Yeah. All Jewish American academics in their 50s are nervous, gibbering wrecks.
Well, some stereotypes are, in fact, true. Mr. Now that you pointed out, can we take a break, please?
Can we take a minute? I'm triggered.
Mr. Ryutaro Omori was a local businessman at the time, and later in his life, when he got very rich and had money to spend, he decided to spend it on building a theme park. And the theme was to be a thank you to the Russian people who'd helped all those years earlier.
He really was very grateful.
He was very grateful. So Russian Village opens in 1993, and as well as a Russian Orthodox church, there were Russian restaurants, a little museum of Russian history, an aquarium filled with Siberian seals, Russian folk dancing. In later years, the park even opened a bizarre exhibition of a life-size taxidermied woolly mammoth.
Mammoth's Russian?
Well, they roamed Siberia back in the day.
Okay.
There you go.
That's nice. I don't see anything bizarre about a life-size mammoth. Why is that any more bizarre than Siberian seals?
Yeah, I mean, I would think like a not life-size mammoth would be much weirder if it was like the size of a house cat.
Yeah.
No.
Or too big.
Like that thing on
the giant
Tap when they have the tiny little Stonehenge.
Yeah.
This little 10-inch thing comes by. He's like, 10 inches, didn't want a Stonehenge I could stomp on.
Yeah, it would be weird if the mammoth was animatronic and spoke.
Yeah.
That would be weird.
When I took my son to the Natural History Museum in London and he saw the animatronic Tyrannosaurus, which is very moved, like he turns and looks at me very smugly and goes, "See, Pop, I told you, dinosaurs are still alive."
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, and what could I say? Like, do I want to ruin it? And he's like, "No, it's a robot."
You idiot. You think they'd be in a building?
You moron.
You think that this would be safe? How would this be safe, you fool?
And the very funny would be, "Oh my God, you're right. Run!"
How is this allowed?
Yes.
Every child
in the museum peeing in terror simultaneously. So back to Russian Village. The star attraction was the church. They went to great lengths to make it as authentic as possible. They even hired a Russian painter to create the murals decorating the ceilings and pillars, because Russian churches, Orthodox churches, are very lavishly decorated inside with sort of, pictures of saints and, gold leaf and everything.
It sounds like their local economy had fully recovered by this stage. Is it fair to say?
Doesn't it seem? Yeah. Well, it's all being funded by this one generous benefactor, right?
Yeah.
There was a hotel next door, too, with luxurious suites on the top floor, perhaps for newlyweds on their wedding night. It operated for 11 years before the owner, this chap, Ryotaro Omori, had criminal charges filed against him.
What did he do?
Well, he made a lot of dubious loans, including the one to build Russian Village.
Uh-huh.
In fact, his bank reported a deficit of $168.7 billion yen, which is about $1.5 billion today.
Oof.
I know. So Amore was forced to resign as the head of the bank he worked for, and while he was awaiting trial, the park shut down. All the buildings were demolished, apart from the church.
Oh. So in a way, the church front was just a facade.
Yeah.
It wasn't real. It was built on false money. It wasn't.
Yeah, and the fact that he poured all this money into this thank you, but then it was all backed with dubious loans, and he put himself absurdly into debt. Kind of have to wonder what was going through his mind at the time.
Yeah, maybe he was laundering. Maybe it was one big laundering operation. He didn't actually give a shit about Russia. So the whole thing comes crashing down because the money runs out. Essentially, the money wasn't there.
The money was never there to begin with.
I mean, he's not the only one living beyond his means, is he, this guy? I mean, if you click... I always wanted to just be able to click my fingers and see how different people would look and how different the world would look if people were living...
Naked?
In their means. Yeah, there'd be some nudity.
Living within their means.
Especially like middle class people who are like, yeah, we've bought a house. Just click your fingers and see, is that money yours? Is that in your means? Did you get a loan? Did you get given a lump sum by an auntie? Did someone die? Do you know what I mean? It's like, are you in your means? It'd be just fun to go, oh, there you are.
Condition.
What's that?
Debt is the modern condition.
Yeah. So he's not the only guy, living beyond his means. He just got this kind of...
True. And this was the Roman philosopher and statesman Cicero's kind of attitude towards life. He said, look, when you need to adjust your income to meet your lifestyle, not vice versa. Which is a very dangerous philosophy, but you gotta give props to that too. Live big, live large. Never know when it's all going to get taken away.
Yeah, he'd be dead soon.
Well, define soon.
Yeah, I mean, relatively, yeah. And you might as well just,
build
throw it around,
a giant Russian village.
Hope for the best.
Hope for the best. Hope it gets millions of visitors. But it was an act of generosity, which I think we should give.
Yeah, and it probably, you would think, rebuilt the relationship between Russia and Japan to a degree? Or is it reset to the previous?
I mean, I think it takes more than one Russian village to do that.
Okay.
What he should have done is seek Russian backers.
Right.
When he got the oligarchs involved, the village would still be complete.
Yeah.
Producer Lewis here. Thanks for listening to this episode of Where Did Everyone Go? New episodes every Wednesday. Follow, comment, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out.